On the Level Talk Show.
Knowledge for the people.
Get ready for some of the hottest talk on radio. The On a Level Talk Show is on the air. Let your voice be heard. The On a Level Talk Show addresses issues that matter to you.
Ankhobia with On a Level.
Welcome to the On a Level Talk Show. My name is Ankhobia. Nice to have you with us once again for another On a Level Talk Show. Now, I must say, it's very good to be in your company once again. Over the last few days, I've been speaking and meeting with a lot of people out there in the community. They've been giving me so much feedback on this particular show, the On a Level Talk Show. So I want to say thank you for all your support and all your encouragement. I really, really do appreciate it. And remember, you can always send me an email at ankhobia@hotmail.co.uk. Now, Ankhobia is not the easiest word to spell, so let me do it for you. ANKHOBIA. All right, ankhobia@hotmail.co.uk. So I want to say a big, big thank you for tuning in. Now, today's show, it is my hope that on today's show, you're going to be empowered. That's what I'm hoping is going to happen out there for many of you, in particular, the men. So I'm hoping that many of our brothers out there are going to be empowered. Now, it's not very often that we get men on this program sharing with you their personal life experiences, the challenges that they've faced and the challenges that they've overcome, and the lessons that they've learned along the way, the lessons that they've learned so far in their journey. Now, as women, we tend to have an array of outlets to discuss our issues, all right? So we can talk to our girlfriends, we can talk to mummy, we can talk to our sisters, and sometimes if we have good male friends, we can also open up and talk to them. But men, on the other hand, don't always have a platform or, a space to talk to other men. Is that right?
Yes, to some extent. But the very basis of, the idea that the woman can open up and talk to the men, then therefore the woman has the ability to penetrate the man also, and for the man to free up the heavens and share in a reciprocal way. And we do have bond of friendship between sons and mothers, and between husbands and wives, and between brothers and sisters.
Yes.
And we, as I say rightfully, we must encourage that connection and need for dialogue and for communication and for sharing. Is the only way we can really know our anxieties and our fears and our reservations, that we can address them.
Okay, so I'm not going to just introduce that person who just spoke there. Such words of wisdom, as always. I'm going to introduce you to him in just a short while. But most certainly, we're going to be hearing men talking about the issues that matter to them. And within that discussion, we're also going to be talking about the black family and community. All right. We had a series of programs when I went out onto the streets and I spoke to men and women, and they spoke very openly about the issues and the problems that they had with each other. They also talked about the things that they loved and admired about each other as well, and their hopes for the future. It was always my hope, after that series of discussions, to have a series of roundtable discussions in which men could come together and speak without censorship and without judgment about the issues that matter to them. Well, I think this is going to be we're going to begin that process where men open up and talk about, I'm not asking them to tell me everything about their life and share every detail and facet of their life with us, but certainly they're going to talk about issues that matter to them. So the show is called Up Close and Personal. And we are going to get up close and personal with Yasus Afari.
Yes, and what better person to be introducing that experience than the gorgeous Ankh, as I tend to call you these days. Yes,
thank you very much.
It's an honor. And the people of Birmingham and certainly the fraternity here has been very supportive and has sent much love my way. So it's really a privilege and an honor to reciprocate. And the best way to show the appreciation, loving for that gesture is to share of self,
Yes.
So therefore, it's something I willingly do, to open up the heavens and give a gateway and a doorway into my life and into my world, up close and
personal. So for those of you who don't know, Yasus Afari, he's a dub poet, he's an author, and he's a reggae artist. One of the books he's recently written is Overstanding Rastafari, Jamaica's Gift to the World. He's no stranger to the On a Level talk show. This is your third time on the On a Level talk show. Yes. But this one, I got a nice feeling about this one now. I had a nice feeling about the other ones, don't get me wrong.
This one is up close and personal.
And personal.
So,
okay.
Can't get much better than that.
And we're also having a second guest in the studio from America, Dr. Oba T'Shaka, the legendary Dr. Oba T'Shaka. He's on the way to the studios. I know he just got off the motorway. So, Beanie, hurry up, please. We're not into this lateness thing, really, but we do overstand still. Yes. So he's on the way to the studio, and he's going to talk with us about the black community and family. And, you know, maybe he'll share some personal stuff with us as well, because I know he's got a very interesting story as well. So when he comes into the studio, I will introduce him then. Okay, now Yasus, you recently performed your, I should call it your life story, so to speak. You gave us a sneak preview into your life. Yes, at the Drum recently, and there was a dramatization called Up Close and Personal. Now, as an artist, why did you feel that it was necessary to tell your story?
Well, you see, every word is defined by the context in which it is used. And so my life and my name and my reality and my profession has a context. And to better evaluate and appreciate of who I am and what I am about, then a proper understanding of the context would lend itself to that realization. And as we said earlier, we really mean it still, because we were here last year and we feel a special bond with the people, and individuals as well as institutions have been very supportive, and we figure say, we have given forward the love there is for the share itself, because, you know what I mean, we couldn't afford to share silver and gold, so what I have I give, and I have me, you know, so we just share myself with the people, and we know say to make them better value what I try to bring to the table. Yes. And I've had an interesting experience, which is, you know, essentially when I embraced Rastafari as a youth who grew up in a Christian home, he grew up in the church, and, you know, your girlfriend was so disappointed, your mother was so heartbroken, and the community and school people. And at the same time, we never kill nobody. We are trying to be ourselves. We are come to a self-realization of who exactly we are and the purpose for which we were created in the first place by the Almighty. And we are doing that, manifesting self. And it shows how much we have been twisted so that we seek outside of our own reality to answers and solutions to our challenges.
Well, you're going to take us on that journey before we go right there. You're going to take us on that journey. So let's go back to the beginning and tell us, where does the story of Yasus Afari begin?
All right. We couldn't go too deep still, because it would have even have to start before the beginning of creation, because it is I and I who were created.
Yes.
You know, the Almighty God is nothing. So therefore, nothing was before the beginning of everything. Because everything is just a qualification of nothing. So we are a part of the Almighty from that time until this time. However, the journey as it relates to, you know, the physical tradition now started maybe 4 years before I was born, where my father actually is 20 years older than my mother. And my mother decides so when she have a son, she will give the son the name John.
Okay, so you were born John.
Well, 4 years before I was born. So my bigger brother now, Melbourne, who is living in the States right now, my father said, well, if him get the name John, is not his son. So my mother couldn't name him John. So him named that child Melbourne. Okay. So 4 years later, my mother get pregnant. By then, my father 60, and my father and mother combined age is 100 and odd, you know. So, I don't know if I told my mother feels so stronger to him get a little elder and thing. She decided to give this youth the name John.
Yes.
And it created a rift between them. Me and my father never have a link until me about 10, 11.
Wow.
And, you know, so what's in a name, you would ask yourself so much and more, you know. So this youth was born in a thunderstorm, and the people, my parents, them never own no clock, no watch, no radio, no sundial, no television set, so they never know the day. It's late at night and it's a thunderstorm, so it created like a controversy in the home, and the grandfather said, give him the new day. So they call it the 4th of September. So we were born like in rural community, which we were supposed to be poor, but parents very proud and assertive.
Yes.
You know what I mean? 'Cause our house attached with dab and wackle, kick and buck. We kitchen outside, we butcher outside. We tank outside, we latrine outside, and, you know, rabbit feeding, goat feeding, hog feeding, tear pants, trousers and thing. But we grew up with a certain level of dignity and self-respect, and we use education as a vehicle, and each one help the other in the family.
Yes.
So we grew up with the Christian orientation like most average Jamaican families, really. But we were also a part of the church community too. Mother was a part of the church community too. And it's within the church I started Rastafari by evaluating and examining the Bible and linking that with some realities in history and the contemporary society. And we realized that then, you know, we're unique and we're special.
But was there somebody in particular that introduced you to Rastafari?
No.
So you found that in the church. How? That's
well, even
interesting.
before that, listen to this now. My mother beat me and locked me up in the pit latrine already if I call upon the name of Rastafari before I ever see a Rasta youth.
Yes. What age were you at this time?
This was about 12.
12, okay.
And then one morning I get up before we go to school and went in my mother's room and asked her, I said, Mama, which day me born? So this is how me know the story from I was about 11, 12 years about.
Yes.
And why you give me that name why you give me, Mama? And she showed me why she give me the name and the whole history that she'd want give me bigger brother the name and the te. So when we start at another level now, when we come to self-realization, we start check the name there still. We say, what in other name there so? And we see even an equivalent and a parallel in even the Bible. Zachariah, the son of the father of John the Baptist, who is the son of Elizabeth, the cousin of Mary. The father disowned him because him named John. So we say nothing new, you know.
So you spent the first 10, 11 years of your life without a father. Were there other strong males around you that, I mean, because you come across as a very strong man, a man who's very secure in his manhood.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, without a doubt, you know.
Yeah.
And you have now, boy, me coming like a mama boy still, and you can't kill me because I have a mother way strong, we never try castrate man. Because most women want to assert them strength and them womanhood. Want to do it at the expense of some other man, whether a husband or, you know, baby father, or boyfriend or kingman or whatever. My mother now make sure so we respect the father. Make sure so we identify with him and support him as she was supportive of him, even in them differences. My mother never yet marry or live with a man. A man never sleep in my house yet.
Yes.
Up to this day, except when my brother become a man and me become a man. And at the same time, we never really were taught, boy, your father workless and no use and you go turn like your father. We never get that from our mother. So now when we look forward, we really appreciate love, the wisdom which she exercise, you know, say, balance the thing, even though I'm not physically in the physical space, have the reverence and the respect there. When our father get elderly, my brother have to go stay with him. And then when my brother move out, I have to go stay with him too. And if my father wants something, I want support or assistance, him get it.
Did you have uncles, even the church pastor, who I assume would have been a man? You know, other men in your life who were influencing you and helping you and shaping you? To an extent, yes, because, you know, rural community grew very communal.
Yes. You know, if a youth misbehave a street, you know, take a father or mother to chastise him. Anyone in our community could do that. It's just so happened that we were brought up in a way where maybe we lucky we bless her, the mother bless her or something. We were the set of youth who never go street, go disrespect or misbehave. So it's not like say we were conditioned outside of the home. We were an example on the street. But be it at school, be it at church, be it going to post office, be it go look bird feeding or whatever.
That's very interesting because when you hear some discussions that take place nowadays about young black men and young black men involved in crime and drugs and these kind of things, one of the first things they point to is, oh, these young men don't have fathers, don't have role models, therefore they are the way they are. Do you think that's a good enough reason to explain why?
That may be a part of the reason in some instances, but not necessarily so, because you have some father where commit incest, you have some father where commit a physical abuse, a mental abuse, you have some father where molest them own, you know, family and relatives. So it does not necessarily translate that a male presence in the family would necessarily mean a certain sense of moral responsibility and of guidance. It just so happened in my situation that even though the father never did it, other males were there certainly, yes, but my mother balanced the thing in such a way that is a thing, you know. I never really miss my father, really. I never yearn after having a father. And, you would never know what it would have been if he were there, really. But his absence is not so impacting that I yearn and pine or long or linger, sorry for, regret. We don't have no regret in that regard. We just have praise and honor for the mother who plays such a significant and balanced role, even the physical absence of the father. And I mean, for example, when my mother beat me, I locked me up for call upon Rastafari name. My uncle says, so what you beat him for? What him do? And she said, my pitney don't tell me for the way they. My mother was so strong that you can't really invade the space. Whenever so we grow up, a motor tire, our mother beat you, she ramp with it,
Motor tire?
Yes, a piece of the tire, the part when near the rim, with the wire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like you said, you didn't grow up with any kind of a ill feeling or attitude towards your mother.
No. Because here what now, it was evident that your mother loved you,
Yes.
The way she worked hard, the way she was committed, the way she sheltered away, the way she make sure so we have provisions. And outside of when she school, we still know she school because she never school when we do right. And we still didn't know the difference between right and wrong. So, we realize that she school when we do something wrong still.
Yes.
And we realize that she is not like a woman who neglect her responsibility. It's a woman who wants to have the best. And it's a woman who make personal sacrifice for ensure say I have the best.
Yes.
So, and the evidence was there really. You would never have any ambivalence as to whether or not this woman loved you.
Yes.
The evidence was there on the ground. So,
yes.
So, that wasn't really a challenging part. I mean, sometimes it was strict and regimental that you really couldn't wait for left school to get that freedom there. And when you come to that level there now where you get the freedom there from school, you really start yearning and I said, Jano. And when you start, inevitably can compare and contrast your perspective, your outlook, your orientation, your experiences with other people, you see that, you get something special.
So would you say you had a good childhood then?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like, I'm really interested to hear about the relationship with your mother because some men do not have good relationships with their mothers and it affects them later on when they go to have relationships with women outside of the family home.
Yeah.
They cannot have good relationships and it's because they cannot heal that primary relationship they had with their mother.
One of the greatest challenges me identify that experience have for my relationship still, our relationships, is that I man have too higher expectation of woman. And me get that from my mother. You know what I say? For example, my mother is such a worker that if a woman make it happy, because some woman have the meditation say, man supposed to do this, man supposed to do that. What's the difference? That's my outlook, And my mother demonstrates that she can't do it. So when a woman make me think say she can't do it, I wonder say if she don't know so we don't deal with handicap.
But you can understand though that a man does have his place in society and part of that role of
not
being
only in a society,
part of that
man
role
have a
of,
role in the family. Because enough time them say, boy, a woman role is in the home. Right away, they expel the man from the home. Because if the woman role in the home, where the man role there? In the rum bar. So when that happen, why we complain?
No, but the man also has a role within the society and within
and
the
in
home.
The home as well as the woman have a role in the society and in the home.
I agree, but a man has to know that part of his role is that of a provider.
And a nurturer. And the woman is also a provider and a nurturer also.
Okay. At this time, I want to bring in my next guest, Dr. Oba T'Shaka, all the way from America. And he's here to speak with us in Birmingham over the next few days. He's going to be speaking. He's going to be speaking about family. Good evening, sir.
How you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. Nice to see you again.
Yeah.
Looking well, as always.
You too.
So you've heard the discussion so far.
Sure
So we're just talking about the family. Okay. Now, what are your views on what Yasus has had to say about family and the role of the man?
Well, I think that what brother was saying is beautiful because he understands that his mother had to take the place of the father, and she did a good job at it. And we have a lot of sisters who are playing the role of both mother and father, and you'll have brothers here in the States and around the world saying that my mother is my mother and my father, and that's because within us, within the male is the feminine, and within the female is the masculine, and sisters have definitely been very good in drawing on the strong side. Mm-hmm. Now, I come out of a situation where I had a mother and a father, and my father worked 2 jobs, so he worked 16 hours a day. We really only saw him for any extended period of time on weekends. And he didn't have to work 2 jobs a day, but he had a lot of rage about white supremacy. And so one of his jobs was as a bouncer, which is a doorman at a nightclub, and that gave him legal license to beat up white people and not go to jail for it. But he was the reasoning person. Something went wrong in the family, and we did something wrong. My mother kicked our behinds, and my father came in and shamed us with logic. And when he got through shaming us, we would have rather had our behinds kicked.
And I must take the opportunity to hasten to remind us that we have fathers who play the role of mothers also. I have a daughter who I grew single-handedly in the absence of our mother.
Yes.
And we have enough examples, enough brethren that I know of, enough examples, just that the men are maybe not as vocal or articulate about it, and the society is not as appreciative. And then we have so much delinquency that the males are responsible for, that it overwhelms the sufficient amount to make a difference that really, really, really nurture, not just in the presence of the mother, but in the absence of mothers also. And in the face of challenges also, and not just males also, but females. We have several examples. I know a family that 5 girls that a father grew, and those girls are,
I know that as well.
Yeah.
Now, getting to the question you had before in terms of the man's responsibility, I agree. He's a provider. That's become difficult because with the way the global economy has worked, the jobs that the average black male could perform that would support a family have evaporated. Those are industrial jobs. Those are good paying, low skilled or blue collar jobs. They could be high skilled. Those are largely gone. And so with them, the men have left the household. And with the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and World Bank policies on the Caribbean and Africa, they have put money into Africa on condition that the basic services are destroyed, like education, healthcare, and they've destroyed the economy in many places, including the Caribbean. And that's eroded the position of both males and females, but it's taken the man out of the home because we bought into the idea that the man is the breadwinner, and if he's not making enough money to support the family, he feels that he's not a man, and he leaves the household. And it's true, the man is the breadwinner. Coming out of slavery, we barely made ends meet, but we made ends meet. And we need to understand whether the man is making a lot of money or not. How much money he makes doesn't determine whether or not he's a man. But what we've got to do is we've got to upgrade the skills of our men so that our men have the kind of skills where, they can, develop a wage that will support a family, and we need to build more businesses. But going to the question of the role of the male, it's always been the case that the black man and the black woman have both had to contribute to the family economy. Both of them have usually had to work. Both of them had to bring in money for the food supply in most cases. And whether it's true or not, both of them, when it comes to the role in the family, men have certain roles. And I think one role is, as they say in Africa, we are the hardness that protects the family against any kind of aggression. That doesn't mean the woman doesn't fight, but if some police decides to invade your house, the man is the first one that's got to put his life on the line. He's responsible for that. Women, will fight too, but it's our responsibility, so that's part of it. But also, since we're both playing a role, and women are nurturers, but as brother said, men have that responsibility too, and more men are stepping up to the plate on that, but more need to. That means there's a lot of work we have to do. But when it comes to role in the family, it's got to be a situation where both have a say-so in the family. And how it works depends on different situations because different families are different.
Depends on the peculiarity of the circumstances.
Exactly.
And the strengths and weaknesses of the partners in the union.
Exactly.
And I agree with everything you said to the T, but there's just like to add this dimension to it whereby we don't live by just bread alone. So we want to broaden the notion of a nurturer and a caregiver. It's not just the tangible, but the intangible also.
Exactly.
Even your situation whereby the man is supposed to defend, the idea of self-defense and the whole idea of security and safety is something that the family needs, and the man provide that. It is not sometimes such a tangible manifestation as the bread and butter, but it is the sense of stability and security in the family. And like for example in Jamaica, some man stay away from the home and the family if they don't have money to carry our flour and cornmeal. And we could easily spend some time assisting with the homework, talking and sharing, bonding and playing, even if you don't have enough flour and saltfish. You know what I mean? So we want to broaden the concept and the perspective of nurture not necessarily mean just the tangible, but also the intangible. So the woman will, provide that loving touch and that bonding there. But at the same time, you have women who do go and work. In rural Jamaica, you have women where dig yam hill and chop down tree. You know what I mean? And at the same time, she still go home and hug and nurture and breastfeed and help do the homework and help give the guidance. I mean...
And, among the world's first families, which came out of Africa, the Twa, Europeans incorrectly call them pygmies, where the family pattern for Africans in the world was established, one of the things you see with men is men carried babies, men hugged, men took care of babies, which is generally not the case throughout most of Africa. Men have a certain kind of care, but that's more the woman's role. And we need to draw more from that, because what children need to get is love. But this other thing is, like, we're in a situation where the white man has given us a model of the role of the man, and the role of the man is that he's in charge and that's it. That is breaking down for the white man. That's his model. It's breaking down because his women are going out and working. His women are saying they need to have a say-so. And you've had women's liberation and all this stuff. For us, there's a thing that sociologists call role failure in the normative sense. A lot of us are trying to live up to this role that I am in charge. I have the sole say-so and the final say-so. But what ends up happening is that's too much pressure for the man. Sometimes it's because he doesn't have the money to support it, because that's part of what that's based on. Sometimes he has the money, but he can't maintain it emotionally. So what I found in looking at our family systems is African family systems weren't patriarchal, mostly. They look like they were because the last name came from the man's family, and he would say he was in charge, but he really wasn't. And the last name would come from the woman and her family, and they would say she was in charge and she really wasn't. And what I found was in most of these ancient family systems before Christianity or Islam, before the white man or the Arab came into Africa, they were pretty balanced. And men and women had their domains and families. Some were in charge of this, some were in charge of that. And what you found in those families is there was very little abuse of women. And one reason is because in agricultural societies, women were the providers of food. You're not going to mess with that. But also, women were sacred, because what you saw was giving life is sacred. It's the closest thing to God. So there was a high regard. One example, what's called dowry, which some people have called bride price, which it is not, which is a thing that in Africa, someone puts up a certain kind of thing. It could be cattle or it could be money or whatever in marriage. In Asia, where the last name comes from the man's family, it's always the woman's family that puts up this price among most Arabs and Europeans. What that means is if a man and woman has 4 daughters, they got to put up this price for 4 daughters. So what ends up happening is infanticide. They end up killing female children because they cannot afford to pay that kind of thing. And it demeans the female. What I found is throughout Africa, dowry was always paid by the male's family. Why? Because it was affirming that it was a great privilege to join into this woman's family or for her to join yours, depending on which family system it was. So there was never infanticide.
But does it mean that economics is the primary reason why families then come together?
No, but it is one reason. No, the primary reason in Africa has always been children.
Yes.
And love, because there has been love. But children are the primary thing, because that's what is going to further life. And that's the joy in life. And that is really the love in life, you know what I mean, along with the bond between a man and a woman.
How many children do you have?
I have a stepson. But what I say is all of the children of Africa are mine. Okay. You know what I mean?
So you got a lot of children.
Millions.
A lot of children. And yes, if you don't mind me asking, how much children do you have?
I have 2 daughters,
you have 2
Onika
daughters.
and Tana.
I can tell he has some children. See, the way he talks, you could tell.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
yes.
And I can also tell you're a good father.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell.
We have been told that by child's mother too, and that is not such a frequent thing.
Yes.
Sure
Okay.
isn't. And then we also know this, with black men, African men, the bond between their daughters is special.
Yeah.
It's important with the sons, but I was
a daddy's
special.
girl. I really was a daddy's girl. I got so spoiled by my dad. I was a daddy's girl up until about the age of, 20-something.
My father was proud because we have three, my brother and myself and my sister. My sister's the youngest. He was proud of all of us, but he had a special bond with my sister. He told her things I never knew. You know what I mean? And it was just because of that relationship.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And go ahead.
Sorry, I have a young daughter who is 18 December gone. I was the first person she ate from. She refused to breastfeed. And I got an idea and made a bottle of water for her, and she had that. So she grew up with that consciousness. I lectured my daughter for an hour the first day of her birth. And she always connect to that too. And
An hour? What did you tell her?
everything.
Everything like what?
Like the beginning of creation, from when she came and why she came and where she is and where she's destined to be
That's powerful.
by genetics and awareness, numerology, the concept of humanity, the concept of man and relationship between man and God, relationship between the God and the goddess. I want you to believe the God have a wife. Because if we are the children of God, God can't get no picture unless him have a woman. And even the Christian perspective even allude to that, why they deny that in practice and in the theology. Essentially, the fact that the man said, let us make man in our own image and likeness. If he alone was talking to himself, is he a madman to be talking to himself? And if he's not another physical being, he must be a spiritual being. And if you check the ancient theology, they would allude that even the spirit is pretty much interchangeable with the name woman. You know what I say? So we teach with that from the first day, the balance there, the male-female energy, the male-female balance, and the fact that if we come from nothing, then nothing must be the unqualified state of everything, and everything must be qualification of nothing. It so happened that himself and Barry Saman work on an album where they sit down and reason, and we create some music in the background and thing. So my daughter was there, and Barry Saman and the other musician, they must say, Lord fire, where you get them reason there from? And one time, me go off tangent and my daughter, stop it. Dean Fraser was dear to one thing, and them say that time she was much younger and about 8. And she said, Daddy, why you say it that way? Why you didn't say it that way? Isn't that the way we talk about it the other day? And I said, yeah, you know, say right. And the place mash up. You know what I say? And when we go home now, she said, Daddy, why they act so surprised? I don't know if it's because you tell me these things from I was 1 day old.
You're tuned to On a Level with Ankhobia. This is Muta Baruka Ire.
Just to remind our listeners, in the studio we have Yasus Afari. He's a dub poet, author and reggae artist. He's also written a recent book called Overstanding Rastafari, Jamaica's Gift to the World. We also have Dr. Oba T'Shaka, who was a professor in the Black Studies Department at San Francisco State University. And he's one of the principal architects of the African-centered educational movement, which led to the development of an African-centered discipline that incorporates physics, chemistry, biology and mathematics into the core discipline of Black studies. He also led the move to define ancient African philosophy as the foundation of the Black studies discipline. Dr. Oba T'Shaka is also the National Vice Chairperson of the National Black United Front, and he's the author of 5 books, including The Art of Leadership, Volume 1 and 2, also Return to the African Mother Principle of Male-Female Equality, 3rd book, The Political Legacy of Malcolm X, and also The Integration Trap, The Generational Gap. Okay, so that's who we have in the studio, some heavyweights. Now, Dr. Oba T'Shaka is in Birmingham for the next 3 days. He's going to be doing a series of events around the Black family. But we're going to be talking about that as we kind of talk about the Black family and everything. But yes, I want to go back to you for a moment. One of the things that I saw at your play, up close and personal, at the Drum, you had a scene. I hope you don't mind me saying this.
No, feel free, man.
On the air.
Uninhibited.
Okay. Yeah. You had a scene in that play in which you asked your mother to give you a hug and a kiss. And you said, you haven't hugged me and kissed me since the age of 12. Was that true in your own
yes.
life story?
Something interesting happened to me in 1996. I was on air with Michael Anthony Cuff, actually in Jamaica.
Yes.
And we had that very popular song at the time, My Mother Who Fathered Me, which I wrote out of a practical experience. And, you know, me always start gluing left my mother. Every Jamaican know that. That's not a secret. It's an open thing in Jamaica. Now, he was saying, you know, you have so much love for your mother, so you hug and kiss. And me just went silent. I said, what is it? I said, actually, I can't remember touching my mother for maybe the past 15 years.
Yes.
And he was like, really? Yeah. And it really dawned on me that we never come out of a family with touchy and thing. We not come too near to a mother. We mother not show we love by hugging and kissing.
Mm-hmm.
It dawned on me at the moment. So I was going on tour shortly after that. And I went to look for my mother as usual. Religious is like a ritual. Whenever I leave, I go look for her. Whenever I come, I go look for her.
Yes.
So, you know, the ritual that we practice again, leaving ritual and thing. And it was a weird experience because time ago, I have to move. And I can't find it. I have the urge, but I can't find it for hug her. I don't know how to do it. I'm not used to it. I can't find energy. It was a weird moment. And me really, you know, my mother noticed me, watch me clock, and I can't find the energy till really time ago now. And I know it go haunt my mind if I not do it. So I just hug her up and let her go fast and leave. Not knowing that she observed everything what happened. She shared to one of my sisters and said, boy, Ray. She seemed stand up in front of me and watch him. One hug me and him don't know how to do it. Until him see time ago, him had to do it. That never really make we become very huggy and kissy after still. But it so happened that in my mother last 3 to 5 years, I was the one who, you know, took care of her, take her to the doctor, take her to the pharmacy.
Yes.
Till one day, the doctors and nurses asked, so you don't have a sister? You don't have a daughter? Because, you know, like, they would want some help to have her undressed, but the way we know it, you can't help undress your mother no matter what, you can't be your mother, so we learn it. So we couldn't assist that way still, but we could assist other ways. So we start maybe get a family friend to come that them could assist them and things. So
Just like my family.
yeah, just like that family, you know what I say? Mm-hmm. So that in itself was something for me which I really wanted to bring out really, because while in my family we never really suffer, I think, from a lack of the physical contact there. But what we think made up for that is that bonding, which was so strong that it overwhelmed the need for a physical contact.
Now, I come from a family of, there's 8 of us. Yeah. And when I saw that part of the play, it really touched me, and I couldn't figure out why, because, you know, as a woman, it's easy for me to hug my mum, easy for me to hug my dad. It was never a problem. And I went home that night and I was thinking, why did that part of the play really stick with me? Yeah. And then I began to reflect on my brothers, because there's 5 girls in my family and 3 boys. I began to reflect on my brothers. So I thought, okay, I must ask Yasus, is it a common thing that men...
Can I make a comment on this?
Know, most certainly, yes.
In some families, the hugging and kissing occurred, but I think it's a common experience that it didn't. I think it's common. And I think that while, as was stated, our parents love us, and against great difficulty, because they were under all kinds of pressure, but at the same time, we were like their first priority. But I think some of this goes back to slavery, because, for example, the whippings that you were just sharing, which we received regularly, which was a legacy of slavery. Yeah. And in my mother's case, that was passed on by my great-grandmother, and it was vicious. It wasn't just spankings. Mm-hmm. And that was because of certain things she had internalized in the way she was treated. And sometimes she'd get caught up in that emotion and transfer it to her grandchildren unintentionally. And then the next day, when she was reminded of how harsh the treatment was, she'd say, oh, grandmother did that. I'm so sorry. You know what I mean? It was transferred aggression. So I'm not saying that it's wrong to spank a child. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that sometimes that was a legacy of slavery. And I think sometimes there was a legacy of confused love. There was love, but it wasn't always clear, and it's understandable. Yet, at the same time, to go through what we did and to come out loving is something. And we are a loving people. And it shows just how strong our culture is. But I think it does require us to really look at that. In my household, I do not recall being hugged or kissed by my mother when I was growing up. But I also recall, as I grew up, my mother began to run a preschool once we were grown, and the students gave her the name Teacher Love. And her teachings throughout that time as we were grown was love. You know what I mean? It was kind of like she was trying to work through that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But she was always giving it,
Yes.
but it was a more physically expressive form of love. It was kind of like she was trying to work through it.
Well, can I share something here? My mother had 4 children of her own, 2 boys and 2 girls, and she adopted about 7 more. She never really hugged nor kissed the daughters. Them never have that relationship. So we never feel isolated in the sense that there was a preferential treatment for the girls.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, me and my brother, I think, are maybe closer to our mom than the girls. As a matter of fact, 1 hour before my mother jumped out of her flesh, December 2004, she told her daughter, who was the first daughter, I am the last child, that of all the children she had, none of them is as close to her as me. So you see, I don't know. It so happened that the boys had a band and appreciation for the mother where just make it rest away. You know what I mean, man? And the fact say maybe I think a part of the reason, even the girls them never have no father where them grew up with still. But as we coming up with manhood, we see said this woman, we don't know if it's every woman, but we can testify after woman there. She carried the responsibility in such a way as a mother and a father without the need and the urge and the temptation to castigate the man.
Right.
Because personally, if my mother did castigate my father, I think I would have feel a little bit different about her. I think that is one of the things where strength, the magnetism and the affection and the admiration and the reverence. For example, may I share something with them? My mother is a Christian woman. When we bring home girlfriend, you can't sleep with her in the house.
Better believe it.
My mother passed out her flesh. Listen this carefully now. My mother passed out her flesh for 2004. And even up to now, if a girl come home with me, she can't sleep with me. Me and she can't sleep in the same bed. I will not have no sexual contact in the house. Even for me and she alone today.
But is this in your mother's house?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Her presence is still there.
Yeah.
And no one can violate that. And if me virgin them, like we Rasta virgin we smoke herb, him can't smoke herb in my mother house. Him can't smoke herb in my house. But him can't smoke herb in my mother house.
Yeah.
Because we are dealing with the mother like so she's still living. And she still is alive. Because we...
But that's something that's very important within black families, isn't it? Even though nowadays it's been eroded, you don't bring boyfriends home to sleep with and you don't bring girlfriends home to sleep with. It's just as simple as that. Nowadays things are changing because I'm hearing some stories and I just think, my God, that could never happen in my day. Never. And when I have children, it could never happen.
Well, we believe some of these values, which we not find no fault of and which we get no virtue from, we need to preserve them still,
Yes.
Better believe it.
Yeah.
It's our humanity. Yeah.
Oh,
And we see a lot of this problem and the decadence in the society nowadays. You can find the genesis of it in these little social misbehavior and the departing from those fundamental principles.
Okay, we're just about to take a news break. When we come back, we talk some more with Yasus Afari and Dr. Oba T'Shaka. We're going to open the phone lines. We're going to talk more about the black family and black community, as well as we continue to talk about black men. If you want to call in and speak to either Yasus Afari or Dr. Oba T'Shaka, or perhaps you have something to say about the black family, the black community, or black manhood, or maybe there's something you'd like to share with us about your own life situation and how you feel it can benefit other men out there in our community. When I come back, I want to ask the brothers, how do their stories and some of the challenges that they faced in their lives relate to the struggles that other black men are going through, and what knowledge and wisdom would they like to impart to our male listeners? I think that's very important. Okay, so we're going to take a break, and then when we come back, we're going to reason some more.
Ankhobia with On a Level.
Call the On a Level Talk Show on 0121 678 6022 or 0121 678 6666.
Listening to the sounds there of Taurus Riley and Della Manley with the song called Family.
We'll be making all the changes in society.
Welcome back to the On a Level Talk Show. My name is Ankhobia, taking you right up into the hours of 8 o'clock.
Making all the changes in society. You see, yeah, the first nation. Yeah. Everything is relative, everyone's your relative, yeah. Everything is relative, everyone's your relative, yeah.
Yes, they're saying it all starts with the family, and it most certainly does indeed. We've been talking with Yasus Afari about his recent play at the Drum Arts Centre, Up Close and Personal. Also, we are joined by Dr. Oba T'Shaka from the US of A. Want to say a big warm welcome to both my guests once again.
Thank you.
Blessed.
Okay. Now, we're having a very interesting discussion there just before the break. I know some of our callers want to call in and, say a few things. By all means, you can do that. Speak to Yasus Afari, speak to Dr. Oba T'Shaka. This is a unique privilege, so use it. We're talking about black manhood, talking about community, talking about family. Now, one of the questions that I wanted to ask the both of you, I mean, you're experienced men, you've been through a lot, you've, been on a certain path in your life's journey. You've come forth, both of you, Pan-Africanist, Oba T'Shaka, Rastafarian, Yasus Afari. You've come with a unique message to teach the people, to our people across the world, and you've travelled extensively. Now, in your journeys that you've been on so far, I don't want to make it look like your journey's finished.
No, just begin.
But in the journeys that you've been on so far, and some of the challenges that you've faced, are there lessons in there that you could share with other black men that could help them?
Whole heap.
Such as?
Well, firstly, especially coming from the Jamaican space and context, we know say, poverty is really a challenge still. But we don't think that we have to take the negative approach to challenge poverty. So we see that even in the ghetto you have delinquency and you have people turn to crime and people turn to immorality and perversion and robbery and violence, and we don't think that poverty need to be the excuse for that,
Yes.
And we think we can take a more positive approach and challenge poverty with creativity and work and vision and principle and discipline. And, as for me, I am eternally confident in the victory of good over evil, and it has not failed I as yet. Prayer I have found in my own life works. And my prayer is not really trying to bribe God, forgive I something, but is to center and recommit and focus and to help to develop the mental energy where is mind over matter. You know what I say? That is another experience. We experience, we need not be unduly anxious or perturbed by disillusion. We must find exactly who we are and the reasons for which we were created and the talents and abilities at our disposal, and by all honorable means implement and make it happen. Once you do that, you can relax.
Okay. We do have a caller on the line. Who am I speaking to?
Hi, my name is Maria and I'm in Ladywood at the moment.
You're in Ladywood. Okay, Maria, what would you like to say to our guest today?
Well, first of all, just to say I'm really enjoying the show. It's very informative, very educational, and just brilliant to listen to. So thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you.
First of all.
Thank you much.
And the second thing was I was really interested in the fact that, is it Oba T'Shaka who has created a program of Black Studies in America, and which is affiliated to a university? Is that right? Did I hear that right?
Yeah, I'm a part of that. I didn't create it, but I'm a part of it. Yes.
Okay, because there is such a need for something like this in this country. I'm sure we'll all agree. And I was wondering, would you ever think of creating something like that over here? And if so, what was it like setting it all up or being part of setting that up?
You asked him about creating a Black Studies in the UK?
Yeah, I mean, I at the moment go to a Black Studies course, which is here based in Birmingham, and it's excellent. It's brilliant.
Yes.
It's a year-long course, and you're focused and you're studying, and when you come away from that class, you're filled with so much knowledge and passion about your people and where you want to go with it.
So how do you want our elder here to add to that program?
I can add to it. I think that it's a good question, and it's tied to this topic. we're carrying out a campaign in the United States and in the UK called We Are Family. And it's interesting, the music that you just played.
Yes.
Because in the States, Sister Sledge, they have a thing, We Are Family.
Yes.
And then I heard this is even more relevant because it's tying all the family together.
Yes.
So this is a campaign that we're going to be discussing at 103 Heathfield Road, Afro-Caribbean Self-Help, tomorrow at 7 p.m. here in Birmingham, and Wednesday at 7 p.m. At the same place. And so this is a campaign to unify our people around what we have most in common, which is family. And we have it moving now in 15 states in the United States. And right now in the UK, it's moving in Manchester. I was there on Thursday, and they're organizing this campaign there. And it just started up in Leeds and here in Birmingham and in Bristol, and we'll be setting up in London. So it's dealing with what we have foremost in common. One arm of this is what you'd call a Black Studies component. It's a leadership training component called Purankh, which is the highest university system in ancient Kemet. It meant House of Life or Temple of Life. Amilcar Cabral, Ella Baker Leadership University. So we're setting up leadership training academies in the UK and different parts of the world that focus on our history and our culture and training our people in the best of our leadership system. So we're going to be explaining this tomorrow at 103 Heathfield Road and on Wednesday. And so this is a way to institutionalize this in our communities, because in the States we have this in the universities, but we don't have it enough in the communities. And so what we want to really do is base this in the communities. And then we want to reach out to our youth, because very often the youth are left to fend for themselves. And with this generation gap, a lot of our youth feel our elders have nothing to teach them. So we want to do an intergenerational thing around the conditions of the youth, and the youth teach us that. And then what we've learned about our extended family communities, because we come out of communities in which every elder was our parent. And this has just started to erode recently. And how do we get back to that? And then in that context, family passes on history and culture. So what's our story? So it's going to be a lot about going into our history and our cultures. So that's one way we're approaching that. The other thing is, learning history and culture is not enough. What about your state of mind? Because Brother was just talking about, just because we're born in poverty doesn't mean that we have to resort to crime. And so, the question is, whatever our condition is, there's an old saying, if you're faced with lemons and it doesn't taste too good, how do you turn it into lemonade? You know what I mean? And some of our people who come out of the roughest conditions are the ones who've been able to do the best with it. So that's kind of like what we're approaching. So that's one way that we can approach that.
Oh, fantastic. So anyone can come along to
Yes.
tomorrow evening?
Anybody can come, and anyone of African descent
Yeah,
can
right,
take
yeah.
part in this, Yeah.
Oh,
You're
excellent.
welcome.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that.
Right on.
Valuable knowledge there.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you for your call. So that's taking place tomorrow and Wednesday at 7 o'clock, right up until 10:30. So you have 3.5 hours with Dr. Oba T'Shaka. And it's at 104 Heathfield Road.
104.
Yes, 104 Heathfield Road, B19, if you're coming by car. And the admission is £5. Young persons go free. Now, I was asking Yasus just before our last caller, what were some of the things that he's learned on his journey that he thinks can help other men out there? And now over to you, Oba.
Yeah. For me, I would say that two of the most valuable things that I learned, one was that we were all put here to do something beyond ourselves. Mm-hmm. And you may not know that when you're first growing up, but for me, becoming involved in the Black Liberation Movement in 1960, in this case it was the San Francisco Civil Rights Movement, the largest of the northern movements. At the time I joined it, I didn't have a clue of what this movement was about, other than that it was trying to help my people, and I wanted to help my people. But getting involved in the movement, I found my purpose in life. And what I found was, when you dedicate yourself to something greater than yourself, you find the meaning for yourself. And that's what a human being is here for, not to just take care of themselves. That's fairly easy. A lot of us say the issue is survival. Cats survive, dogs survive. Most animals in the animal kingdom have no problem surviving. And it may be a struggle for us, But that isn't the biggest issue. We're oppressed, and the question is, how do we achieve liberation? If we were liberated, we'd be serving some other cause. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I found my identity through this Black liberation movement. I discovered my gifts through this Black liberation movement. And what I found is how brainwashed I was in this Black liberation movement, because I'd gone through college and received nothing but miseducation and thought I was being educated. And it took Black people with no college education, very little public education, who had more education in the knowledge of self to wake me up. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, as I went through a change of consciousness and really developed a deep love of myself, I thought that I had really got myself together. And I was in a marriage. I was married for 32 years. And I thought that, this is a real together Black man, until I discovered that there were problems in my relationship, mine and my ex-wife's. And I realized when I began to face mine that there were things that I didn't have a clue to, and they had to do with the feminine side of being a male. And I'm a warrior. I have no fear. FBI, CIA's tried to kill me 3 times. They've denied me work for 10 years. They cut me out of a lousy public school teaching job that I could have beat them on. I just didn't fight. I have no problem with that. You know what I mean? Death doesn't scare me, doesn't bother me. That's inevitable. But I came to realize that when it came to some of the sensitive things, I wasn't so tuned to that. When it came to some of the feminine things, I wasn't so tuned to that. When it came to understanding like the real impact of the women in my life going back, way back to my great-great-grandmother and how that impacted me. And so it caused me for 4 years to have to go into retreats and look at myself. And that introspection was, next to my recovery of my own identity as an African, was the most important experience of my life, because I discovered a side of me that was incomplete. And it then led me to, in 1990, write a book called Return to the African Mother Principle of Male and Female Equality, which put me in the place that this discussion is going around, the nurturing position of men, something that I had to come to. And my father was always a model of that. He was both a man's man and a ladies' man, but I didn't really see much of the nurturing because he was working all the time. You know what I mean? Though he was providing for us in his way. But as I talked to my mother later, this was a Black man who brought flowers to my mother every day of their marriage.
Wow.
If he was wrong, this was a Black man that was whipping Ku Klux Klansmen who were 18 years old when he was 11 years old in Orange, Texas, when to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and you were Black, you got lynched. This was a bad Black man. But he would get on his knees and crawl to my mother and ask for forgiveness, something I would never do. But I must admit, my father was no wimp. He didn't do it because he was weak. He did it because he was strong. And so now I realize that in the latter part of my life, the last 20, 25 years, I've been trying to be more like my father. You know what I mean? Because I already had the tough side. Most of us do. But to get to that gentle side, you know what I mean? So that, of all the experiences, that was really the most rewarding, but it was also the most painful, because to have to look at that side of yourself, especially when you're 43 or 44 and you think you have everything together, and to realize that you got some holes in your consciousness that you have to deal with. That is truly not an easy thing to face, What
were some of the things you would have to shed if you're a man who's a man's man, as you say? You see yourself as a warrior out there fighting the cause, fighting the struggle. What are some of the things you would have to shed? Things you'd have to shed from your belief system in order to get in touch with that more?
Being sensitive. Like, I thought I was sensitive because I care about my people. My whole life's dedicated to my people. But being more sensitive to the feelings of people around me, especially women. I was rough and tough. I cared about my people, but I think I exuded something that would kind of keep people away from me. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
And I think it would also instill fear in some people, which was fine for me when it came to white people. But it wasn't my intention. I wasn't doing that intentionally. So it was a lot of things that had to do with sensitivity, feelings for people, being able to express those feelings. The nurturing qualities Brother was talking about, beginning to develop those, understanding. I've always been intuitive in everything I do, but I wasn't conscious of it. You know what I mean? And so, becoming conscious of that. In fact, going and looking at myself, I think the biggest thing was to understand the impact of the women who raised me on my life.
Yes.
My mother, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and to understand the positive and negatives of those impacts, because I had to understand both. Because in part, in my marriage, I didn't enter a marriage with a full understanding of even how to select a mate.
Yes.
Because that was something I was more focused on the movement, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And on liberation. I didn't understand those dynamics. And then I found that in many things with my ex-wife, that was my mother. Some of those were good and some weren't. And I had to look at that. And so it was really taking an inventory of myself and then working on those things that I realized weren't as strong or as developed as they should have been. And the other thing is what I found is in working on that, because my destiny is being involved in the Black Liberation Movement, it made me better in that movement. Because how can you be involved in a movement that involves males and females, and you're much better at addressing the issues of males? You understand?
Yes.
So now I have more friends that are female than males. Now it's women who are calling me, telling me things that only women tell women, which I find quite interesting, quite enjoyable. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's an experience which I enjoy too, full joy actually, whereby we can zone into the feminine energy and get the woman open up and say things that, as you just said, would have been reserved hitherto for just female friends. And we think that, it would be good to reciprocate, whereby we start opening up to women that normally would have just shared with man friend them. You know what I say? Balance out the thing.
But it's an interesting point that it is actually raised, because you do find when you come into the liberation struggle, so to speak, I don't like to use the word struggle, but, when you come into the movement, so to speak, you find people who have a lot of knowledge, very intelligent, very good social skills, so to speak. But when it comes to emotional intelligence, oh God, it's like 1 out of 10.
Like a child. Yeah.
We struggle. We really do struggle. So I'm happy to hear you.
Another thing that I found was anytime you face a life crisis, whatever it is, mine happened to be around the feminine principle. I don't care what it is. It causes you to draw on higher powers, spiritual powers. You have to draw on them. And because in my case, when I realized, because, my ex had her problems, but I realized I couldn't deal with her. She had to. I tried to help her, but she had to deal with hers, but I had to deal with mine. And then I realized that there were some things, this was hard. And I started calling on a higher power. See, me in the Black Liberation Movement, if in the 60s I worshiped anything, it was probably black people. Because what happened in the 60s is the black church didn't produce for the most part. And in the movement I led, they betrayed us. And so I translated that to just, I had no interest in religion. I knew nothing then about African spirituality, which I'm in now. So I was in a bookstore one time, and a Muslim in the Nation of Islam, he was summarizing my beliefs. And sometimes people can tell you something and get you to look at yourself. And he says, oh, you worship peopleism. And then I had to go and look at myself and say, yeah, that's true. And then I had to say, now that's stupid. You're worshiping people, So, as I went through these changes, the spiritual thing, I began to draw on that. And then what happened is the humility, because what happens is when you go through crisis and you realize that you haven't got all the answers and you got to call on something else, it humbles you. You know what I mean?
I want to make a point here. If you examine some of the Christian teachings, Christ himself would seem to suggest that peopleism and worshiping people is not such a bad idea. Because he himself described himself as being both singular and plural all at once. And the least you do to any of these, you do it unto me. So in other words, he's a personification, but then the people is also a personification of him.
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? So even the Rastafari, while we hail His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I, we also recognize that the people are a plural rendition of him who we regard as the father, and of her who we regard as the mother.
Yeah, that's true.
And even our children really are the conduit that transport us into the future.
That's true. And I have this great love for my people and for humanity, but even though it was probably implicit, I recognize the order, just as in Rastafari, God comes first. And God did implicitly, but it was not in my thought pattern. You know what I mean?
And while God make man, man also make God. Because where would God be without man?
Yeah, or at least the image of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember, if you want to call in tonight's show, and I'm encouraging the brothers to call in, sisters by all means you can call in, but the brothers in particular, it's not very often that we have such wise men in our studios. I have to be very honest. And it's not very often, therefore, that you out there in the community have the opportunity to speak to such men, to open up, to ask them questions. It could be about anything you're going through in your life. It could be, you're trying to find yourself as a black man and you don't know which road to turn or which road to take. So by all means, do call in and speak to either Yasus or Oba T'Shaka. The number is 678-6666. We are a community. You can't see me, I can't see you, so there's no shame involved. All right? No one taking photographs of you and sticking them on the internet or anything. It's not a television, nobody can see you. It's just a phone line. 678-6666. Yes.
Just one other thing. This experience for me led me to a greater appreciation of black women and women in general. I always loved black women, but I began to appreciate more the qualities that women carry and that black women carry. And what I came to understand at a deeper level is that though we are both very important, women are at a higher level of development than men. And when it comes to the spiritual domain, that became an extremely important thing to me. In relationships, women are generally more highly developed. This brother excluded and brothers like him because he's on another level of development. But many of us do not understand the dynamics that women understand. When they come into a relationship, for example, they understand the mental, along with respect, is the most important. Men usually don't understand that. They may come to understand it in the course of a relationship, but women understand that the mind is the most important thing, along with ethics and the spirituality of the person. And what will bond them to a man is the nature of their mind. A lot of men think that it's just physical, and with women, it's the mind
first. For me, it
first.
has to be the mind. If I don't like your mind, I don't even want your number.
Yeah. The mental intercourse not right, the physical one weak.
You got that right. Or to put it another way, the biggest sexual organ of a woman is her mind, not her behind. And a lot of men get it wrong. You understand? Yes. And therefore, they think that all they have to do is show their physical thing and the woman is turned on. It is much more than that. Woman is very complex. And that's something that I came to really understand.
But
deeply.
Do you think nowadays black women really understand that?
Some are losing it still because, listen to this now. Why we have to redefine and reconfigure we mind our society, because I think sometimes religion, although it play an important role in some of us lives, sometimes it do a great disservice to the community. Because, for example, Dr. Shaka spoke of the woman being more highly developed, and we also have evidence that women mature faster than man.
Yes.
Remember one day I do an interview and some Rasta man actually, get offended based on the fact that I personally think, I'm not claiming to be no authority, I'm just sharing my thoughts as a philosopher. I'm thinking that the woman was here even before the man. So when they were having a problem with that, I said, would you agree that the puss and dog was here before the man and the woman? Them say yes. So I say, you have a problem with the woman then? So why the woman can't? You understand? So what's so wrong with the woman that she can't there before we, and up to now, we still don't see no one born from nobody ribs all now.
This is some wisdom here. or women tie into much more quickly the higher mind, which is the intuitional mind. Men have it too. We are both spiritually endowed. But I think in part because women carry life. And I think it's also the makeup of women. The emotional core, which is put down, is irrational, but it's tied into feeling and it's tied into a higher order of humanity. So that thought process, how many women have I heard said, the man that I'm with, I had a dream about him. And then when they saw him, then they began to carry that dream out. And men didn't understand that they were caught in a spiritual relationship when all they saw was the physical. Yeah. This is the higher order. Now, it happens with men, too, because we carry the same power. So part of what happened to me when I went through this is I began to experience these spiritual experiences.
Well, interestingly, you see that play, Up Close and Personal, John? The girl in it, Twiggy, my girlfriend in it was called Twiggy. I met her.
I hope she's not listening. Are you out there, Twiggy?
She good, man. She good, because we have that overstanding, which is not normal. Anyhow, I visioned Twiggy the day before I met her. That time I was 16 and she was 15. And then I see this girl, and when I glimpse what I can, I said, wait, that's a girl I saw last night. And I called to her and she refused to come. I wouldn't stop calling to her until she write me a letter. This was a relationship which was based on love. As we alluded to in the play, we were friends for 4 years and we never even kissed. The first me kiss her is up on her handbag and me float go home. Me float go home just through that kiss up on her handbag. The first time me embrace her, it's like me under some drugs. The way me have
that's the best kind of high.
And then now we see how go to
okay. Don't mean to cut you there. We have a caller on the line. Wow. I'm going to carry my handbag around more often. Okay. Who am I speaking to?
Speaking to Ken.
To Ken?
Yeah.
All right, Ken. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Ladywood.
From Ladywood. All right. Yeah. What would you like to say?
No, enjoying the conversation. I want to just even just share some room with the man, them Yasus and Shaka in the studio.
Yes, most certainly. Go ahead.
Ankhobia.
Yes.
It's my mind that said to me, all right, family is more than just a mention. It's a serious thing. No, it's not like, say, we never have a blueprint, if you like. So what I'm saying is, do we follow the traits of we family of when we was known as a highly civilized family, or are we today forming, assimilation to what we believe family is, if you know what I mean? Because I know personally that a lot of the traits was given down to us. Like, I learned a lot of things off my parents, who's Jamaican, and if before we go to school we would learn, but it's part of what we would learn in the house, if you like. So not only that, I say a lot of traits was passed on to us. So are we going to say there's a line what they cut off where the traits what made us known when we, the Shaka and a lot of them, like yes, we read, we know say we was classed as highly civilized people.
Good point. One, I would say that what has enabled us to be strong is that we came through this enslavement experience. We came into the Caribbean and we came into the United States and in South America as lineages, or at least people who came out of lineages and clans. But we were separated from those. And so we did not have close blood kin with us most of the time. And so what did we do? In all those places, we reformed extended family communities. Even when a husband and wife in slavery were separated, we would reform relationships with another man and woman, but we would come into an extended family community where elders who had no blood relationship to us became our grandparents and great-grandparents. And we continued that after the enslavement process, and it sustained us here in the UK until the 80s and the US until the 80s. That is when it began to erode. Now, the question that you got there, are we going to go into this assimilation and move into someone else's model, or are we going to draw on our best? The truth is, the greatest weakening of our families have occurred since the 80s, and it starts in the late 60s, and we've got to begin to piece that together. This is the point I want to make. 2 points. One, look at the world and ask yourself a question. Wherever you see people making progress, what's it based on? Look at the Chinese. Right now, their economy is growing at between 7 and 10%. They're going to replace the United States in less than 20 years. 1,300,000,000 people. They're feeding themselves, but they're exploding economically, and they're moving on the African continent in a way that's not so good. Why? Because at the foundation of their society is their family model. It's called Confucianism. It's the eldest males in charge, and what that means is The World Bank, the International Monetary Fund cannot tell them what to do. The Chinese tell themselves what to do. If you look at the Japanese, they have a thing called Shinto ancestor veneration. And that is at the base, along with Buddhism and Confucianism, but Shintoism is Japanese, of their culture. If you look at the Western man, it's not patriarchy that drives their system or capitalism. They have a system that operates through their families, which is the one who's in charge has the power to do whatever they want to do. It comes under patriarchy, but it's arbitrary. That applies to the whole world. So George Bush says, my doctrine is preemption, meaning no power can equal my power in the world. I can take them out. But that's what ties them together. For African people, the question is, what model works for us? That has been the confusing one. Even with extended family communities, we weren't clear on that. And
I don't mean to cut you. When you say African, you're talking about black people, right?
Yeah, black people,
yes.
Of course.
And it is important in that whole scenario to point to the compass that will guide us into the future and in the realignment. Humanity is a family. Every individual comes from a line and a womb. So it is father, mother, and children. And we must equate this to a reinterpretation of the theology and the concept of the Godhead. Mm-hmm. The sun, the moon, and the stars. Even the woman's menstrual cycle, we must compare that with the cycles of the moon and realize that the moon is a woman and the woman is a moon. So the best way for a woman to come to a self-realization is to study the moon and the cycles of the moon and our relationship with the moon, and the relationship between the moon and the sun, and the relationship between the moon and the sun and the days of the week. So it's enough lie and hypocrisy and pretension are evident in even the way them govern the society. Mm. For example, 7 days make 1 week. I would think that 7 days would make one strong. Anyhow, 4 7s give 28, and you have 12 months in the year. Them really change up these things to hide the connection between I and I humanity and with spirituality, the earthly and the heavenly, because it is really 13 months in the year. A woman's a 13 period for the year. A woman take 10 is really 10 months. A woman take fair picnic, you know, and all the doctors them conspire. Even when a youth are born, them deliberately set up a process through the midwife them of delivery, where them starve the brain of oxygen, which rob you a certain. That is why even now them say we operate with about a tenth of our brain, and in some instances less. So you see, we have to start revisit all the fundamentals. We just can't be gullible and accept all the things that were handed down to us. We have to start, as Bob Marley even said, they think that what we know is what they teach us. But we are not ignorant, because enough educated dons run the society. And a case in point is the president of your country right now. You know what I mean? So whereby we want knowledge and truth and rights rather than people, emotion, or people, socioeconomic power, our the bloodthirst, our thirst for power.
Okay, Ken, are they answering your question?
Definitely, yeah. And you know, before we go, we just want to add to something with women as well. Can we personally believe that when you're born, right? You're born to do the woman's work, right? That's what me believe. And
that when you're born as a man, you're born to do the woman's work?
As like the woman, the hurt is a woman. For me, you're born to do her works. You strive along to do her works, and you feel proud of doing her works, because when we think of woman, we think of mystery, and that's why we know a woman is Yasus is saying it's really, really close to Jah, if you like, because it's only. Nobody can tell me, say, they don't feel say woman is a mystery, because woman is a mystery, Ankhobia, or you would say?
I'm a big mystery. A big mystery.
Yeah. All right. I tell you, I'm glad you come out, to come talk to me, and that's when we ring up as well. But,
okay.
Just a point I was trying to finish there is that, and I agree with what Brother was saying about the solar and the lunar, the masculine and the feminine. That's true. And the point I was getting to was we have our family pattern, and it may have been obscured or clouded up by slavery and what's happened to us since then. And our family pattern starts 144,000 years ago. It starts with the world's first people called the Bachwa. According to mitochondrial DNA, it goes back to the first human beings from which all human beings spring. And what we find is these people who lived in Central Africa, Bachwa, Kum, Kalahari Desert, these people evolved a family system that lasted longer and a society than any other human condition. Over 100,000 years, people lived in this state. And what was this state? It was a state that I call not matriarchal, where women ruled, not patriarchal, where men ruled, but twinlineal, meaning where the lineage of a man or a woman comes from mother and father, and they lived in balance. And that's why they lived in that state for so long. It was the most prosperous society people ever knew. They had no slaves, you know what I mean? And they had no people who were free. Everyone was free. And no Chwa participated in the slave trade. And the reason that we find in the African traditions or the traditions of black people in the Caribbean or the United States is this great urge for freedom. It draws from this tradition. So this is something that, you know, it's kind of like there's a rap song in the States. It's called Going Black to the Future. You know, we got to go black to the future. Draw from the best of our past, and the balance is the best of our past.
Okay, Ken, give thanks for the call.
Give thanks.
Okay, take care. I'm glad you touched on, it seems like we have another caller coming in just before I could even make my point. Caller?
Hi, it's Charles.
Shaz? Okay, Shaz, where are you calling from?
Birmingham, Warden.
All right, Warden. Okay, what would you like to say?
Yeah, you know, Brother Shaka was talking about the Chinese model, right? Confucius, right? Did you know Confucius was a black man?
I don't know. I didn't know that, but that's...
Yes, he was. Because you see, the original Chinese was black.
That's true. Shang and Hsia dynasties were black.
Shang, the two first dynasty in China.
That's true.
The Zics and the Shang. And what happened, right, some white people come in, then the white people that you see there now, is they shove them out, and some of them went to the north and started the empire. So what I'm saying, right, even though they have 16 permits in China, plenty people do not know that.
Okay.
Have the what you call it, in 1945.
Caller.
Yeah.
I don't want to come across like I'm being rude. We have 11 minutes left for the show.
Okay.
Is there a particular point you want to make to either of our guests?
What I'm saying that we could adapt the same culture because it's our culture.
Well, you know what I would say to that, just real briefly? Confucius comes at the end of the Shang and Hsia dynasty, and actually what he pushes is the emperor of Chao, and Chao is Chinese. They're Asians, and they become patriarchal, and they begin to put down women, but still it's a just system, more just than the European. But your point that's very valid is the founders of China were Anu people, A-I-N-U. The Chua are Anu, these little people. So the foundation of China does go back to black people. However, these Chinese evolved as these Mongolians and other Asians came in. They evolved a more feudal, patriarchal, male-centered society that moves away from the way African societies work. But at the base, they do have this African foundation. So it's better for us to go back to the original. That is what gave birth to it, which is us.
All right.
But you have a profound point.
Yeah, so that twin lineage that I alluded to earlier, that balance.
All right.
And we as Rastafarians realize that His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie insisted that his empress was crowned on the same day with equal pageantry in the church, so that I established a precedent, says a balance. And the relationship is unique and must operate in the context of its strengths and its weaknesses. So we are equal partners.
Okay, right. This is the Honor Level Talk Show. Just have 9 minutes left. Want to mention once again that Oba T'Shaka will be at 104 tomorrow night from 7 o'clock until 10:30.
Heathfield Road, 104 Heathfield Road.
What did I say?
104.
Okay. You know what it is? It's because 104 is such an institution in this community. We just by saying 104, people
they know
generally.
where it is.
But thank you. 104 Heathfield Road, Handsworth, B19. Oba T'Shaka will be there. And what are you going to be talking to people about again tomorrow?
Two things. Tomorrow will be We Are Family, this campaign that we're carrying out around the world. And then on Wednesday, the Parank leadership training, and we'll be talking also about this twin lineal family system.
Okay, and that's only £5, all right? Only £5 to go to that actual event. And Yasus, you also have some events coming up.
Well, yes, after Dr. Shaka passed through this strong, the 9th, between 5 to 7 p.m. at the ACMC, which is right here where we are, in this building now.
This building.
For teachers and librarians. Amina Blackwood Meeks, the leading storyteller from the Caribbean and from Jamaica. She also is with the Ministry of Education there. Well, she will be here. So she, along with me, between 5 and 7 p.m. For teachers and librarians, but everyone is welcome. And on the 10th, between 5 and 7 at the Handsworth Library, that one will be for parents and children, where the family learning concept will be expounded there. Amina Blackwood Meeks, along with myself, will be there also. So it's poetry and storytelling from Jamaica, using, the art of storytelling to convey and continue the value system which we alluded to as being central and important to the family. So it's pretty much a continuation of the same energy that Dr. Shaka will be dealing with this strong. So we'll be using the art of storytelling and poetry to carry out the value and to re-engineer and re-socialize the man and the woman and the picnic. It's a family thing.
Now, something very interesting here. You're from the UK.
USA.
You're from the USA. You're from Jamaica. How do you see black men in the UK? Do you see them as proactive men, or do you think that there's issues they're trying to struggle with and need to address and,
Well, to be honest with you, I've been here last year, October, between October to December, and then I've been here from March. So I certainly can't be an authority, but
using your intuition when you pick up.
Yeah, we think there's an issue in the family and in the relationship between man and woman. We think that as it is in Jamaica, whereby 7 out of every 10 students at the university level are males. And the point average of the girls in secondary school, nearly 10, we have been told by the former Minister of Education, above the males. Now in this society now, we find the manhood has been under attack, we think, and the man has been systematically undermined in the family. And education as a means of social mobility and so on has been put on the back burner. And we see the man kind of losing direction. We see now the women trying to assert themselves sometimes, do it at the expense of the man, but we say the woman must do it bearing in mind the family, because she herself can't have a family without the man being there. So I guess the women here will have to take a role now when they must breastfeed and inculcate and brainwash the children. For example, in Jamaica, we see whereby the girls say, "Oh, mother did do that too." Our brother, girlfriend, not remembering that the same value will be circulated and she will be at the receiving end. So some of the values that the women are complaining about, they are also responsible for instilling in the male population. So we must be very conscious of that. And we cannot be victims of this orchestrated gender warfare. The family have to stay together. So while we are defending women's lib, we still can't defend that at the expense of man's lib. So we have into more a family lib and a family development rather than male-female. Certainly there are justification for wanting to kind of twist the thing back to a balance. But then again, we can't just keep swinging the thing, whereby a time will come when the man wants to do back the same thing there to the woman. We have to have the strength to have the balance there, straight through,
One of the things that I think, and I think that's profound, real wisdom. One of the things that I think that I see in the UK, I also see in the US, is that there's a generational divide. And if we talk about black men or African men, it's a different situation with older black men than younger black men. It's a fundamentally different situation. Older black men have come into the UK and got jobs and were able to support their families and maintain households. With the younger black men, those jobs have dried up. And now with Eastern Europeans coming into the UK, they're taking jobs that blacks had before, and those jobs aren't there. And so what we see is with younger black men, with the eroding of the family, what's happening is they are becoming substitute men, substitute fathers, and they're providing the guidance for other males. often not having much to offer guidance with. And there's an alienation, a growing rift between the young and the old. So a lot of the younger males feel, not all, but too many, that older males can't teach them anything. And this is this generational divide that's going on right now. And we need to heal that, because it is not the older male that has prevented them from having an economic livelihood. And it is not the younger males who are a threat to older males and females. A lot of our older people are living in fear of youth. And most of the youth are not armed, and most of the youth are not dangerous.
I know what would be important for inject here too. These winners generation, them reach a certain age. And we think that the black people in the UK must, with a sense of urgency, reconnect with the elders to make sure, say, the knowledge, the information, and the values are passed on. Yeah. Because if we make them move out and we don't do that, we're in a deeper waters.
That's what this We're Family campaign is about, is connecting the generations. I agree.
So make sure you're there tomorrow night at 104 Heathfield Road at 7 o'clock, and again Wednesday at 7 o'clock. And get to meet Oba T'Shaka, and of course come here on the 9th.
On the 9th, 5 to 7, Amina Blackwood meets Yasus Afari, and on the 10th at the Handsworth Library.
Okay. I really enjoyed this discussion.
Yes,
same here.
I wish it could continue. I really wish it could continue. Thank you ever so much.
Blessed.
Thank you both ever so much, and I hope you have a very successful tour.
Sister, thanks for having us. It's an honor and a pleasure every time.
Thank you. Give thanks.
Hey, thank you.
All the best. Okay, join me again next week for the On a Level Talk Show.